may not, like at the district office level, that may not, we're getting subs when they're available. Sometimes we have limitations on the amount of people. Right now we're finding we have a shortage of custodial subs available, and that is causing some havoc. We just don't have the pool, and I know HR is currently working on getting that pool expanded as best we can.
Donna, because we have two new board members, can you talk about like the May, so Governor Newsom proposed his budget, we'll have a May revise, it'll be the June final budget. Can you explain that to our new board members and how that process and that as it relates to the school district?
I think you're
Okay, so we know that Governor Newsom proposed a budget for 2019-20. In that, we know a couple factors that we know. We know that the COLA is going up about 0.81%. From what we have projected in the first interim report that you got to see in December. We know that he's proposing helping us with STRS. There is no help with PERS for the school districts, but there is some help with STRS. It isn't revenue to the district. What he's going to do is he's going to pay it directly to CalSTRS, and that reduces the amount that we have to contribute. It's still going to go up. It's going from 16.28 to 17.1. It's still an increase, but not as a big of an increase because originally it was going to go to 18.1% for STRS. So we can reduce the expenditure for STRS on that. There's some one-time money he's going to be giving for special ed is in his government proposal, but we don't know what the details are. And depending on what those details are, we're waiting to hear more from that. We went to school services yesterday. There's a lot of information, and we are revising our documents, our multi-year projections. We're incorporating the 3.25% raise. We're looking at all the factors that are associated with what the governor's proposal, and we're putting what the county says we can do. Because there's some things that are very highly dependent upon the legislature. And the legislature may, governor may have proposed it, but the legislature may not approve it. So counties sometimes caution us saying, well, you may get, this, but in reality, it doesn't go through because the legislature doesn't want that. So we're very cautious. So the county gives us guidance. It's usually called the common message. And every district and every county uses the same common message. And that's what goes out, and that's how we build our second interim report and our multi-year projection so we can determine what we need. Will that mean that there'll be an adjustment in the amount that has to be reduced for budget solutions? Yes, there will be. I don't know if it's going to be a lot, but because 0.81% is not a significant amount of, especially with the decline in enrollment, it's not going to be as much as we would like. There is no one-time money being offered by Governor Newsom going forward. For the last 4 years, we've had one-time money that Governor Brown had given us to pay back what was the mandated cost claims, but it helped us get through the last several years, and that's not going to happen this year. All we have is basically COLA only. And it affects the 1920 and the 2021 years when we do our multi-year projections. So that's it in a nutshell. Then when May comes, we can get the tax revenues in April. The legislature have been talking back and forth, and the governor then has a better idea of what's going to be successful, and he knows what his revenues are, because we already heard that he is under estimates like 100 million, but we may get that in taxes. We don't know. The market is very volatile. We get a lot from capital gains. We may not get as much as we thought, because remember in December what happened to the stock market. And while it's inching its way up, it is still not where it was back in the first part of December. So that could affect tax receipts that come in and are due in April. So the governor will adjust what he has to do. The COLA is also adjusted because by then you have the permanent number. It could go up or it could go down. I've actually seen it both ways. So that will affect and have us revise what we need to do. So, and that's what happens. We incorporate all that, we put it into the budget. And most of it, again, is dependent upon what the legislature and the governor agree to. And if Newsom is as savvy as Governor Brown was, they'll pretty much have that locked up right after the May revise.
So I kind of
in my mind, thought we could do this in 3 different steps. So the first one is how is this affecting? The second one is, let's look at the list that we looked at the other night and kind of see, I know you can't say anything because nothing's decided, you're coming up with those, but you already do know some things like Tosa's retirement, so we'll be able to put this, and then kind of go through the sheet.
Yeah. And we actually
and then
put it on the agenda item so that the audience could see it too, and we have some copies over there for them also.
And then we can do maybe a discussion, but I before we go there, because I have a feeling once we get into that, this is going to get lost. I want to talk to our current freezes. I am knowing, not that I feel or I think, I know that teachers are not allowed to order supplies for their classroom. We have a board policy that says we will supply all those supplies to the teachers to teach. We canceled STEM night. No, like we canceled STEM night due to the budget freeze.
No.
Yes.
It was not because of budget freeze.
They're not necessarily an extra thing that we usually have.
The teachers at the schools can't put it together. I mean, instead of the students to display what they've worked on all year, I'm not sure why we need our RTs to.
Well, in the past, that's how it's been done. The RTs have coordinated all of the school sites bringing stuff in. School sites run their own little science fairs, and then they also have the STEM class that they.
Right, so, I was told it was canceled, and you're telling me that it's because the RTs don't have time to put it together, but I think we can do it without the RTs then. I think we can put the word out there to the different school sites of where we want to set this up, and then we can do that. That's a direct hit on the kids. The noon duties are a direct hit on the kids. Supplies are a direct hit on the kids, and it's like, but I've asked this over and over, I've said this over and over, and it keeps happening and it keeps getting worse. We started a dual language program in this district. I was the board member on that committee and attended every last minute. We promised that school support. We've been bragging about it in public. The teachers need professional development because it's new and it's advancing to the next grade level. They were told, no subs, so you can't have your professional development. So guess what we're doing again? VUSD, we're starting it. We're not going to support it all the way through. We need to not have any freezes affect the school sites.
I agree with you, Mrs. Swissville, and again, I'm not privy to the conversations that you have, and I think Dr. Stites the same way. We have not heard that. I mean, we have been granting requests constantly. I could pull up a list from you right now that shows what's been approved and what's been denied, and most of the ones that are denied is because they have budget issues. We have that information. If the school, and there's teacher supplies in it from stores, from Amazon, from everything. We are doing it. So again, well, ma'am, I'm just telling you that if we don't know there's a problem because no one has reached out to me, I don't know there's a problem. All I know is what the principals reach out to me, I go and I talk about it, and then we do it.
So it's the principal's not communicating.
I'm not exactly sure where the breakdown is, but I think it's something that I know Dr. Kimball's going to go after this meeting and figure out what's happening, why there's a breakdown, and why we are not aware of what is transpiring at the school sites between the teachers and the principals and the district office.
We know that we pulled, we basically stopped all use of subs except for extremely exceptional cases during the school year for any purpose, because what was happening is we were having 27, 30, 35 teachers subs short every day the end of last year, and so we said we've got to restructure this, and that's where the wheel came from, and we started having PD pushed into the school day. It does preclude going from conferences to conferences or full day events We do make some exceptions, but since then, we have had sub coverage, and the point, if you're about students, is to make sure the kids have, you know, an appropriate teacher with them. When you're short 27 subs, you know, you might be getting people out to PD, but you're not making sure your most important customers are you know, like our students are with an appropriate teacher, and that's why we stopped the practice of having people go during school day. We do things on the wheel, we do things on, you know, summer and breaks and things like that, but we are not doing, as a common practice, PD during the day.
That's
So
not what
we
we're talking about.
So we have, I'm sorry. I think when we tout that we're starting a huge program and we get a school on board, regardless of how many subs we're short, we owe it to them and the students and the community to do what we promise. So what do? We put a freeze. Oh, guess what? You can't have your PD. They're not in charge of when the PD for this is. They have to go visit sites when the kids are in school, and they're being denied that, and we expect them to be ready to pull this off in another grade next year. It's so unfair to our kids to do that.
January 18th, tomorrow, they are attending the professional development, and there was a way to put forward that they were missing.
Right, but the other ones have fallen on days where they need themselves and they couldn't go. Tomorrow is a non-student day, so they jumped on that chain. And it was granted to do that. So what I'm saying is, no, we're not gonna start this program, we're gonna stop it now. Because we're not gonna do it halfway. So, sorry.
It's all right. I have a letter here that was sent out to all VUSD employees. And it states, one of the immediate measures we are taking is implementing spending and hiring freeze. This means that every dollar spent at school sites and the district departments will be reviewed and approved by site and/or district leaders. The entire management team, which includes principals, has been given spending and hiring freeze guidelines and will share with staff as appropriate. What are those guidelines that they've been given?
I can share them with you. A lot of the guidelines, if you have Title I, categorical like ACEs and or restricted routine lottery money, those type of things, you have free spending. They're not the general fund. They're not unrestricted. You can spend them within the parameters of the rules and regulations according to those. So those guidelines are in there. I think it's on the. I think there was a frequently asked sheet that came along with it, and I can share it with you. I don't have all the details, but there was a whole lot of details. And then the principals came back and asked questions. Well, what about this? What about that? We went through it and we answered all those questions because we tried to be as complete as possible. They asked, okay, what are unrestricted dollars? Well, we went through and we gave them a legend that said, these are the resources that are unrestricted. These are the resources that are restricted that you have access to. We went through and did that.
It sounds like we should share that so the board can see that.
So what are pencils, papers, supplies under them?
Unrestricted, but they've been going through. All they have to do is submit them. They get reviewed and it's fine. Now, if they order 3,000 pencils, we may question them, especially with the school of 500.
Because I've gotten several emails from several staff members saying that their budget has been frozen and they can't even get the supplies that they need.
Again, I don't know if they reached out to the principal, but the principals haven't reached out to us. At least not to me. That's all I can say is about me. I have not seen those requests.
So can you explain why we started right at the school sites? First, we took away APs that are desperately needed at these school sites. We took away the noon duties, which are desperately needed at the school sites. And I understand we changed things, but guess what? The kids are still there, so we need the bodies, we need the hours. And I'm just every day shaking my head saying, how do we immediately go to the school sites? Immediately we jump to the school sites. No more subs, no more this, no more that. I'm curious if there's a reason for that.
The first thing we did is we cut 20% from each of the district office departments. That's the very first step. I went to each member of cabinet and said we must cut 20%. We'll provide that to you. Yeah. Then we talked about, okay, how can we make sure that we least impact students? And that's where we said, let's stop having this tremendous amount of travel and conference. We cut our own travel and conference. We reduced everybody's travel and conference because that was an enormous amount. So, I mean, we can spend this time talking about these types of things, and that's fine. I would just remind us that we have $18 million to cut, and even if you start with one group of people, you're not going to get to 18 million. So this is a system-wide problem we have. Lots of schools, we have lots of personnel, we have lots of people, and frankly, we have too many people that we are employing. And until we look at the entire system and we find the additional people that we were bigger at one point and we are smaller now. Until we look at the entire system and talk about where we have extra people, and agreed, we have extra people at the district office, we also have extra people at the school sites. Until we do that, we are not going to find $18 million worth of answers.
So that's what we are tasked with doing, and that's what I wanted to talk to my fellow board members about, is my idea. My idea is we take our student, we put our student down, and we have a big circle and say, what do they need? They cannot do without at all. The second one is, what does the student need that would help above? And the third one is, what's kind of fluffy and it would be great if we could bring in when we have the money. And then kind of the same with, we have to restructure. People want to say cuts, I say restructure. I say we have to lay the whole entire district out. We have to say, here's the student, what do they need? Where's the money coming from? Is this needed? They talked a little bit about it at the committee. We have these papers and there's all these positions for millions and millions of dollars, but nobody comes in contact with the children. And again, we're asking the teachers to buy their supplies again. So that's how I would like for us to look at this deficit that we're in, not who can we cut, because we always know how that goes, who's not important, when in fact we don't even kind of go out to the school sites to see who's important, because if we had done that, we would have never cut noon duties, we would have found the money for them. And then we'll build around that, and that will take, yes, there'll be cuts, but the people who are most important to the students we will keep. So tonight, we have a few things that we have to present, which will take us money, but if we find that they're beneficial to the kids, even though we're cutting, we will find money to get those programs, because it's about the kids.
I follow you perfectly.
Anybody else have thoughts about what we should do with this deficit?
I just have a comment about the noon duties. Thank you for giving back the hours to the noon duties. However, putting them as a classified employee didn't help when you gave them back the hours. And I know that's not you doing it. However, you need to look at the bodies that are needed for noon duties, not the hours. Because you can't have one noon duty for 200 students at lunchtime.
Right.
I understand that it is a very big issue that we try to figure out the balance. It's really hard for HR, and I think Elena could explain it a lot better, to hire an hour person in a classified system. It's like the aides. We at Vista hire 6-hour aides. There are districts that hire 3.9 or less, and they can't get the instructional aides that support special ed. So it is a conundrum because it's hard to hire the appropriate people.
So I would say, if, at some point, when your questions are answered, I want to let Donna sit down. This is a conversation for the board to have, right? And I hate to have her, responding to questions is fine. If we have opinions, let's give them as a dialogue between the board members, if that's okay.
Can we project this up on the screen?
Yes, it's the district position one.
Do you have other questions for Donna that you need to?
I just have a comment. In terms of the supplies that teachers need to teach their children, perhaps it should be clearly stated what's off limits and what is not, and what can be purchased, so that there is no, there's consistency across the entire school district with every site. That's really important. And that way, we don't get an email stating that someone couldn't buy their supplies. So if that can be sent to the teachers, that would be fantastic. Additionally, in terms of the conferences, there are some that are more important than others. And I would second the thought that Rosemary mentioned about if we're implementing a new program such as dual immersion, we have to support the campus 100%. And dual immersion and the pedagogy and the research behind it, you know, I went through it 20 years ago. It's different. It's changed. There are systems and schools that are very successful with that. And those teachers at that school need to be given the opportunity to attend, and the principal needs to know that it's okay to give them that release time. In other words, they're not going to be effective in their instruction, and the program is not going to be it's not going to be actualized as it should be.
Donna, and maybe you don't know this, what's the maybe we can start here. What was the unrestricted fund? What's the amount of money that was put in there for school supply and those kinds of things?
It's about, for all school sites, it's about $1.5 million is what we do for, and it's all, there's a formula driven based on elementary, middle, and high.
Okay. So if we eliminated all that money, that would be a drop in the bucket compared to like the $18 million that we need.
Correct.
Okay. So
Correct.
as we look at that kind of freeze, it's kind of inconsequential. When we put the dual immersion program, got it started, was there a resource allocation that was committed to say, look, we know we need staff development, and were there X number of either sub days or release time or anything else put together to look at that?
I believe there was, in strategy 4?
No, strategy 7.
In strategy 7.
Okay. We know, I mean, I appreciate Matt knows that, but we know what those numbers are.
I can give you those numbers.
You know, for example, as in, you know, one of the complaints that I've gotten from teachers, and it's particularly elementary teachers, because at the middle and high school level, if we're short a sub, typically those teachers, through a process of working on their prep period, they end up figuring out how to cover those classes where there's no substitute. You know, at the elementary level, they don't have that flexibility, and therefore they're stuck combining classes and one and another. And so, you know, regardless of the reason that we don't have a substitute, if we don't have a substitute, we compound the problem for the teacher who's left on campus and now has another 10 or 12 or whatever number of kids that they take for the day because there's no other person to put them with. I mean, there's no substitute. So I think we have a different dilemma regarding that and the impact that a lack of substitutes has at the elementary level versus the other two levels. Because the other two levels, we kind of get it covered with
Section
teaching.
releases
Yeah,
and things of
exactly.
that sort.
And so, you know, that there's if you will, is an out at the middle and high school levels to try to get those classes covered, where at the elementary level, we don't have that opportunity. So,
Do we have the amount or the number of the number of positions that are retiring?
65?
But where are they?
They're all over the place. 66 certificated employees among them.
Yeah, and there's about 81 classified.
Okay, what about in management? Do we have that number and how much it's going to save when they retire?
We don't know of the savings yet because it depends on if the position is filled or reclassified. For example, if you have a director and you decide you're not going to keep that director position, you get 100% savings. If you have a coordinator who's retiring and you fill it with a TOSA, then there's a differential savings. So those decisions have not been done yet, as we wanted to wait until everybody had a chance to look and rescind if they wish to. So those are going to be coming up pretty shortly to go through and determine fill, replace, what's going to happen. If it's a classroom teacher And depending upon, because we've estimated what our enrollment's gonna be next year, and we're still projecting a lower enrollment than we have this year, that's gonna create vacancies out there, roughly right now about 40 positions that we won't need because we're shrinking, is what we're projecting.
I think what I'm looking for is using the existing information that you have. Can you go through the list, maybe that one up there, and just start making marks that this person's retiring, possibly retiring, and then not worry about if you're replacing that position right now, but I'd like to see who is retiring where, or what positions are retiring, and then maybe we can make a decision as to whether or not we need to replace it.
I would have a concern that that's a confidentiality issue.
I was gonna mention that.
We can't put that out in public, so people feel that's a.
Some people don't want others to know, because we had to have an early tell. We did it by November, and people said, can you keep it until maybe April, March or April, because they didn't want people to, you know.
But I think
I think if she wants that not in public and wants to view that list, then that could give her a.
Yeah, we can make those arrangements to do that. We can do that, but like Dr. Mr. Alderson said, that is an issue. People have actually told Elaine that they did not want that information shared.
Thank you, I respect that.
So up, down.
So the grapevine question was answered. I think you should sit down and let them talk. I think that was great. The grapevine question, can you answer that now?
Yeah, with all schools. Let me ask you just one more question.
We had an answer for you, Rich.
When it's on this, I guess this is like a inventory control for personnel here.
It's a query that we produce out of our financial
So
system.
I just want to be sure that this is all, the numbers that are here include benefits.
Yes, it does.
So what's the benefit? If we had 30%, is that?
21.06% is for certificated staff, 29.6% is for classified, and it doesn't include health and welfare. That number does, but that isn't a percentage, and that's 11,400 for every full-time equivalent position. But those numbers are reflected in this chart right here.
And the 6 point whatever aides, are they considered full?
No, they are not. They're considered 3/4.
Say something. Okay, we can get this started. I thought this was interesting, and the team started to look through it the other night and had many questions, which we might have the same, maybe not. When we go through this, so do we want a couple minutes just to go through this? Because I'm thinking Deb and I have been the only two that have seen this.
Sorry, what are we going through?
So if we could put that up on the screen again. So to kind of just keep this along a little bit. So if you look up and you see the roll-up labels, you'll see the number 410 over in this box. That's the innovation department. When you go to the end of that, you can, the top of there, next to the 410, you can see we spend $681,000, blah, blah, in that department. 420 is curriculum and instruction, and we spend $6.5 million plus in that department. So when I pull these, I'm thinking we need to look at these and say what is needed. We cannot do without as far as the kids go. And I think we should probably start there. And then the other things, and it's also like a few years ago, we've hired a lot of people, so it's, back to those bare bones. Sometimes you got to do a little more work than you're used to and pick up the slack, so.
Excuse me, I need to make one comment about this list. The question I was asked when this list was produced, query that was produced, was all non-school positions that were in the district that weren't at school sites, okay? Some of these are funded from categorical funding. You'll see in there CTE teachers. Obviously, those are being funded from CTE. There's Title I teachers that may be doing the impact teachers. You go list, they won't say impact, they'll say resource teachers. So I just want you to, as we talk about it and you mention a particular group, we may have to come back and let you know that those are being funded out of a categorical restricted program.
Okay, I need some educating.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if we have a program that we use Title I funds for, and we're saying, okay, it's keeping this many teachers out of the classroom, and are we able to say, put the TOSAs back in the classroom, take the Title I funds given to the schools, and they can hire hourly or whatever support they feel necessary at the site, or is it said this Title I fund has to have the impact teachers?
No. We, as a district, have set aside a certain portion because we're focusing on a certain main goal. But any money that isn't for specific purposes like professional development or specific direct instruction to students, we can then reallocate to only Title I sites, because those are the only ones that get it, which is almost all of our schools now. And they would get a bigger increase in the amount of Title I money coming to them.
So even when we go through these groups, if they are paid out of categorical, it's not necessarily that we have to keep them, because there are different ways under that category to spend the money, maybe.
At least on the federal dollars, yes. CTE is a little bit funky, but that's usually secondary focused and it's depending on what's being offered at the school site.
And they're the ones who, the school sites use their funds to bring their CTE, like the literacy, the leadership, Temple Heights, sorry.
No.
That's career tech.
That's
more like,
career technical, CTE is career technical education. Those are like the graphics class at RBV, the medical class at RBV, auto shop, culinary.
Thank you for clarifying that. Write you down. Thank you, Donna. That'd be great. I will. Okay. Any thoughts, or do we just want time to process this and come back and talk again, or put our thoughts down? It's a lot to take in, so to say let's have the conversation. I'm okay if you're not ready to talk about it, but at least we know we all have the same thing.
Are we scheduled to have another meeting on the 7th of February concerning the budget?
Yes, so we could just have our thoughts ready by then and come back and give our input. I think by then they'll have their proposal, at which time we will have a chance to accept or redo. Are we good? Okay, I think we have 10 minutes before we have to be in closed session.
No. We're gonna adjourn this meeting.
We're adjourned. 4:50. Thank you, Deb.